Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to WLF1, and first of all, I'd like to apologise that it's been so long since you last heard my voice or saw my face. In this podcast, you will not be seeing my face unfortunately because even though it's taken me ages to get myself set up, I'm still not actually set up as such because I haven't really found a way to get a good camera angle. So for this podcast, I'm just going to do it straight off using my voice, plain and simple. So the topic of this one is basically about that Max Verstappen penalty at the US Grand Prix, which just came up. Right now it is actually Friday. FP2 and Mexico just finished, but obviously we'll talk about that on Sunday after the race and so on. So right now, I guess I'm going to quickly give you the highlights of the US Grand Prix if you guys aren't aware. Lewis Hamilton won. Max Verstappen came second. Sebastian Vettel came second, and then Raikkonen came third. But the issue is, should third place be given to, or should it have been given to Max Verstappen, because on the track at least Verstappen was the person who crossed the line third, and the only reason that he did not get third was because of a 5-second penalty that was given after the race because of an alleged illegal overtake on Raikkonen on the final lap, which was on the sweeping right-hander. I think it's turn 17. I'm not 100% sure what turn it is, but I'm going to talk about, my view on the opinion, the issue about the decision itself, my view on the decision, the issues around the decision, and the issues in the bigger picture for Formula One. And it may be, you may argue that, the argument I'm trying to give you is kind of really stretching it, but I personally think it's very viable, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the actual decision itself is something that Niki Lauda, for example, said it was the worst he'd ever seen. And I think that's saying something, considering it is Niki Lauda. He's very well known for, of course, his illustrious career, but the fact he is someone who's an advocate for safety. And if he's looking at it and saying, look, this isn't a terrible decision, what does that tell you? Now, the reason the call was made was because he had all four wheels off the track on the inside, and okay, if you look at it quite clearly, Verstappen does go over the curb completely, and there is a fair gap, and usually on another day, okay, that's an illegal overtake. However, you've got to look at it in the bigger picture of the actual race itself. And for those of you guys who didn't watch the race or even watch quali and so on, the amount of times that people extended the track limits, they just overshot it, especially the penultimate corner. So many times those track limits were extended, and I do not remember seeing a single penalty for it. I don't remember a single time a driver was punished for extending the track limits, and that was something that was ironically a topic of discussion throughout the weekend. It just so happened that on the final lap of the race, something brought it all back together, and that's the big issue, because the decision on its own, even being the fact that it's on the final lap and so on, with all the emotions, etc., on its own is the correct decision to give Verstappen the penalty, or at least to give Raikkonen the position back, because let's face it, he cut the inside. He made up his own track effectively. It was a sizable gap. Raikkonen knew Verstappen was on the inside. He'd actually left him space, and Verstappen decided to leave that space and make his own space effectively. He clearly cut the corner, and you would say, okay, look, if you look at that on its own, it's a clear penalty. It's clearly, he needs to give it back. And yes, okay, I understand that. But the issue is, there's no consistency. I think ironically in quali, Verstappen also did extend the track limits on the, I think, penultimate corner maybe, or one of them, and didn't get a penalty for it. Didn't get punished. His lap times still counted. There was quite a few drivers who did that. Even through practice, it was still happening. People just weren't getting punished for it, and I guess, the stewards looked at these incidents and all said, look, if we've said you can't have a penalty for this one, we can't say it. If another driver goes over that X corner and does the same mistake, because these cars are wider, it's trickier, the speeds are a lot faster than they used to be, etc. I don't know. That's just assuming really. But the problem is, when you put it into that bigger picture, you can't then go to Verstappen and say, look, you've taken advantage of track limits, so I'm going to give you a penalty, even though we haven't, given a penalty to anybody else on the grid. And that's the issue. In fact, it's a shambles, because Ferrari, they didn't actually argue. It wasn't the stewards' inquiry didn't come because Raikkonen argued. It wasn't because Ferrari argued. In fact, Raikkonen said in the post-race interview, he actually, when he found out that he was given third back, he was still busy being upset that he didn't maintain third position. As far as he was aware, he lost the position. From his perspective, it was a fair overtake, and whether he saw Verstappen go all four wheels off the track or not, irrespectively, if someone says, "Oh, it's because he didn't see it," who knows? Maybe he did see it, but as far as he was aware, he's done something similar himself, or he's seen other cars do it himself and was aware that nobody was being punished for it. So, as far as he was aware, it was a fair overtake. As far as Ferrari were aware, it was a fair overtake. As far as everyone, in the stands and watching at home, and the commentators, they were all, as far as they were aware, it was a fantastic overtake. And Verstappen came from 16th. He had a penalty at the beginning. He had a grid penalty. He came from 16th, and on the track, he went all the way. He absolutely carved through the grid like a warm knife through butter. He absolutely tore them apart to get himself into that position. He had blistering pace, and it really makes me wonder what would have happened if he was further up the grid without the grid penalty. But that's another matter that's not even worth discussing. So, at that pace, and it's the wow factor. It's such a wow factor, and maybe the stewards were aware of this, and they said, look, we can't let our emotions get ahead of us, that it was amazing. We've got to look at it as an individual decision. We've got to say, look, we know it was incredible, we know it was amazing, but at the end of the day, you broke the rules, so we've got to penalise you. But as I said earlier, there's no consistency to that. So, how can you possibly give that? So it's a real shame. And for me, this is the part where I talk about the bigger picture. For me, it really sets quite a depressing tone for F1 over what was, as far as I'm concerned, a legitimately thrilling race. Because for those of you guys who didn't watch, I'm going to quickly turn off this. For those of you guys who didn't watch the race, on the very first corner, Vettel overtook Hamilton, took the lead, got a bit of a gap, and Hamilton worked his way back, nice and calm. Quickly as a side point, Hamilton was blisteringly fast. Even when he was overtaken by Vettel, he was so in control. He was so calm. The engineer came on the radio, spoke to him, and he says, "I feel pretty good. I feel pretty fast." He felt totally in control, even when he lost his position. And if you look at when Hamilton and Rosberg last season collided in Spain, the moment Hamilton lost his position, he suddenly panicked, and that's what caused that massive crash there. But this time, a season later, when everyone's saying that Hamilton has gone up to a brand new level, you look at Hamilton and he's just unscathed because he knew the performance he had. And frankly, I think he overdrove that car, because it wasn't as planted as the Ferrari. It was obviously, I guess you could say, yeah, it was faster, but actually it was still a bit of a diva on the weekend. Frankly, he just was really able to wrestle it. So I just want to, and with all the action that was going around him, and the fact that every time he gained a gap, whenever he had his pit stops, I don't know, strategy just wasn't working out. Vettel would come close to him, other drivers would be getting close to him, things were getting tricky, and tyre strategies and so on were getting tricky. They had to mix up the strategies with Bottas, with him, and that's why Bottas came all the way down in 5th in the end. And there was lots of overtakes from the beginning to the end, and it was a fantastic race. And overall, especially with what happened with Verstappen's overtakes come from 16th all the way down to 3rd, technically 4th now, of course, it was a fantastic weekend. And then this ridiculous, frankly, this decision comes along and puts this awful tone on the race. And the reason why I think we need to look at this in the big picture is, for me, the biggest issue in F1 right now is sustainability. The issue is, we've got cars, we've had Arrows, we've had Lotus, we've had Marussia, we've had a Jaguar. Even if you look back, so many car companies that have come and gone, and I've probably forgotten so many because they didn't have the money. The resources weren't there back in the day. For example, tire strategies weren't as big as an issue because the tyres were provided, I think back then, by Bridgestones, I believe, and the tyres were provided free. The tyres were free, but now, because they've got to pay for them all, they've got to look at strategies and how they work it, and it becomes expensive for car companies and so on. And the best way for this to sort of be sorted out, for these smaller teams come along and be able to survive in the sport, is for the sport to get as far as I'm concerned at least, a bigger audience, wider audience, because it's hard to do. It's hard to regulate where the money is dished out to, because even though the big wigs at the big teams are saying, yeah, we would love to have more cars, we'd love to have closer racing, they say that, but at the same time they don't want that at all, because they want to be winning. Mercedes wants F1 to survive as long as possible. At the same time, they want to get all the money because they're winning. They're the best team at the moment. They want to remain as the best team with the most money, with the most resources, etc., with the best research and so on. And so they kind of want things to be better, but at the same time just want to make sure things are better as long as they still benefit. So the best way for the money to actually start coming in for these small teams is, I think, for the FIA and so on to start to get more money by basically appealing to wider audiences, get more fans, get more grandstands packed in, like we would see at Silverstone, like we were starting to see at the US Grand Prix, like we would see in Italy, etc., where there are passionate fans. There's a strong fan base, there's a serious audience and a love for the sport, and it's flocking in the fans. And we're seeing at the moment, especially with Silverstone, then I think it was it Malaysia? We had the final ever Malaysian Grand Prix, because the money's not there. Silverstone's having that issue at the moment. They're on a short-term contract, and as far as we're concerned, Silverstone's not going to survive much longer. In fact, I made a podcast of that a long time ago. So if you go down my channel, in fact, I may leave it in the description. You can watch that. You can read about it. You can learn about these money issues. And so I think that the money's got to come by appealing to wide audiences, and the American audience is massive. Look at NASCAR, look at IndyCar. Those tracks have got, they've got like they've got like 250,000 people in the grandstands, like all the time. There's so many people at these races. There's a clear love for sports, for motorsports. F1 needs to get in on that action. That's why we've got COTA. That's such a beautiful track, so involving. And okay, first of all, let's say if anyone saw the grid walk or the track parade, and how the drivers were introduced on with this very like boxing style, let's get ready to rumble style of whatever it was, that was such cheese. It was just cheese on top of cheese, but they're Americans. That's kind of how they do things over there. It was, for us Brits, or for me, it was a little bit like, come on now, where's the sophistication? But that's just the style they have over there, and that is what appeals to people. Every time you see a NASCAR race, they've got B-52 bombers flying over, people with jetpacks, everything, because it's such a huge event. Think how much money is there, how many fans you can get from that. So for the fans, they looked at this race, the F1 race, and they saw what Verstappen did. They saw the excitement, and they go, this is bloody awesome. This is freaking amazing. And then they see that the excitement has been sanitized by the stewards, by this awful decision, as far as I'm concerned. This, technically correct decision individually, but in the space of that, in the bigger picture, it's completely wrong. And that's, you got to look at it in a, excuse me. Oh damn it! I'm getting so passionate, I'm choking myself out. If you look at it with the picture of consistency, which they must maintain, it's a bad decision, frankly. And so US fans are looking at that and going, this is a load of crap. Frankly, this is just not right. They are just ruining the experience. They're ruining the sport. They're strangling people, frankly, because ironically we're getting, the FIA is getting a little bit more lenient with things. When you see people, you see crashes, there's more times now than it ever has been, or recent times at least, where the stewards looking at it and go, racing incident, and that is such a huge leap forward in the development of the sport to get back to its heyday, when it was so gripping, when it was so exciting, when the fans were so passionate, because you saw the wheel-to-wheel action, and you saw bits of body contact, etc. So it was just kind of part and parcel of it. Obviously we don't want to see people crashing out every single race, but we want to see exciting races, and frankly, crashes are kind of part of it. So, it's all part of the excitement, and the way the FIA is starting to get this slightly lenient view on it now is absolutely ideal. But then they completely contradict themselves with this Max Verstappen decision, because they were letting everyone else race. They were saying, okay, if you extend it a little bit, go for it, fine, we'll let you off. And then Verstappen comes, and Verstappen is, as far as I'm concerned, I would say the second biggest name in F1. Probably third now. Third, okay. Current, like very, very current, because I think Vettel. I'm tempted to say Vettel isn't as popular as Verstappen. Very, very debatable. If someone said to me, no, Ibs, you're completely wrong, Vettel is much bigger than Verstappen, I would say you're probably right. But I feel right now, because of how much support Verstappen has been getting in the past 2 years, his rise to fame, and how much people just kind of adore the guy, and the fact that he is the future of the sport. Frankly, he's got a fan base that's grown so quickly that he kind of needs a bit of a bubble around him. That people need to be looking at him and saying, we need to get him as the face. We need to get him, out there as as the bigger picture. Whoops, I just dropped something. Yeah, so, of all the people to do a shocking decision on, you give it to the man of the moment. That decision was on the final lap, on the guy who was the driver of the day, who has got one of the biggest fan bases in all of F1, and you do it. The timing, the inconsistency, the way it strangles and sanitizes the sport and pegs down the clear talent in this man. Everything in one awful bundle to ruin what was a fantastic, and I mean genuinely fantastic, weekend. It's so frustrating. So my view of that, of course, is now clear. I just thought I'd get out there, make a podcast, and make you guys, aware effectively that. Before we go on to that, I'm quickly buttoning on myself and say that what I didn't actually mention, this is me recording myself after listening back, I completely forgot to mention that Max Verstappen also got penalty points on his racing license. So whilst I'm busy making you aware of stuff, I need to also make you guys aware of that. And that, I don't know how I completely forgot to say it in the podcast, but that is potentially the biggest point, and I didn't put it in my initial recording. It completely came off my mind, but of all the, this is just a sprinkle of BS, frankly, on top of the situation that I don't know how I completely forgot to say, but I had to let you guys know. And again, it's a case of I just can't understand what were the stewards thinking when they decided that it's okay to not only give him the penalty and take away that podium, but also to give him points on his license. For what? It was not dangerous. Niki Lauda thought it was an awful decision. Obviously, he didn't think it was dangerous. Kimi Raikkonen and Ferrari, neither of them two were arguing their case. They didn't think it was dangerous. From the onboard footage, it doesn't look dangerous. I don't know where the stewards decided that there was danger or something in there worth not only a penalty but also points on his license. And I again, it's just that rotten, out of date tomato on a tomato or cherry on the top of a very bland and disgusting cake that the FIA has baked for Max Verstappen. It's so frustrating, and again, it's a case of it just killed the vibe of the weekend for me. I'm a Hamilton fan, and all I could think about was how annoyed I was about Verstappen, about that decision for Verstappen. It paints such a dark image, such a bland picture of F1, that they're stopping drivers from being risky, they're stopping them from extending limits, they're stopping them from truly pushing and expressing their talent and putting their body on the line. And they don't look like athletes anymore if they're being punished for being risky. It wasn't dangerous, it was risky, yes, but it wasn't dangerous. I could go on for ages, but I've interrupted it myself. So I just thought I'd quickly throw that in because I didn't say it in the initial recording, just so you guys are aware. So whilst I do request in a moment's time for you guys to have a bit of a discussion and and talk about this in the comments, I just wanted to let you guys know that. So before you begin your commenting, if you do decide to comment, let that piece of information be aware to yourselves as well, because I would oh gosh, yeah, I could go on for absolutely years about it, but yeah, I will let myself continue speaking. I'm still here, I'm still alive, I'm still breathing. I'm just a little bit slow because I'm now at university, still setting up my setup, I guess. Setting up my, does that make sense? Yeah, it probably makes sense. So I'm still acclimatizing myself effectively, but here I am, I'm back. I think this podcast hopefully shines a bit of light onto what is a bit of a grim topic. Frankly, it really frustrates me. But I will be making another video this weekend. Hopefully I will be able to get it out on Sunday, if not probably on Monday, which will be the race analysis of the Mexican Grand Prix, which obviously today is Friday, FP2 is just finished, and the FP3 qualifying and so on will be tomorrow, and then Sunday of course will be the race. I will do my best to get a video out there. If I do not record it as a video, it will be in audio format like this podcast is. So I'll do my best to get myself back on track. But nonetheless, thank you so much for watching, guys. I truly, truly appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this podcast, smash that like button, share this video, subscribe. Also comment down below about your views on this opinion. I'd love to hear it genuinely. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.